I'm going to paint a crab today. Real colorful, real bright in watercolors. Got my watercolor palette over here. And got some water back here. And I'm going to start in just a few seconds. Well, I've got my watercolor drawn out. I've got my paints, my water, different brushes. So I'm ready to start. I use this type of watercolor pencil for areas that I want to stand out more. So you will see me using some of that. So let's get started. I had to switch sides of my watercolor table because I was getting a really hard overcast shadow. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and kind of trace around the outside of my crab with the watercolor pencil in an orange and maybe a darker orange than that. And I'm doing that because it's going to be blue in color and I want a little contrast around the edges. So I'm just going to quick do that. When I go to paint, the water will make it kind of melt right in, and the little pinchers I want to be red too, so I'm going to do some of that. Now what I'm going to do is wet the paper so that it flows real well, and then when it's just a little bit dry, I'm going to get in and do some other things. Right now, I am putting color on and I'm wetting it at the same time because I'm going to want it to flow down. And I've got a green color here, but I'm going to have it flow into a blue. Now, usually I have my paper totally flat, and so I don't have to worry about it dripping, but because I'm trying to film this so you can see it, I've got it up at a little bit of an angle there. So at this point I think I'm going to have to stop and let it dry, and then I'm going to come back and start the video again. Alright, I'm going to start painting the little flippers and their legs and stuff. This is going to be a blue crab, but I'm going to make him a little more colorful than maybe normal. So, I'm putting the blue on. This is a light blue. And I'm going to also put it up here on the big pincher legs. My favorite part to eat. Yum. I'm going to put it there too, but I'm going to go over some of this with some yellow, which will turn it a green. Also back here, maybe a little darker. That's the one thing with watercolors. You have to put 2 or 3 layers on, glaze it, as they call it, to get the colors you really want, because as it dries, it becomes at least 2 shades lighter, sometimes more. So don't worry about getting it too dark. It doesn't usually happen. Of course, the minute I say that, it's always best just to do some color samples before you start if you're not familiar with the colors you're using, and that'll give you an idea of how it's going to look when it's dry. Okay, now when wet, I'm going to go into these and I'm going to put some yellow in there, because that'll make the blue turn a nice green color where it hits and runs down in, and it just gives it more interest, I think. Now those little red pinchers, I'm going to take a tiny little brush here, itty bitty, and little 0, and hit that again with a little more red. It's orange right now, and I'm thinking I want it to be just a little more red, at least on the pincher that's closest to me. Maybe a little more here. His little eyes need to be painted into over in there, but I'll keep waiting before I do that. I think I'll get some phthalo blue here and go back in on these back legs and do a little phthalo blue because it's darker, adds a little more interest. Also maybe hit it there and there a couple of places. Now I'm going to let it dry a little bit and think about what I want to do next. Now I'm going to finish up by simply darkening some of the areas and adding a little bit to the foreground. Like I said before, the colors will get much lighter as they dry. So you always want to make sure they're at least one shade darker than what you anticipate to be your final color. And I personally like colors to be vivid. So I'm going to keep just adding more of the same colors to the crab until I get it all as dark as I think it should be. Adding some more red here to his little pinchers. And little oranges over here on the side, building this up. I just keep working this color in, and eventually I'll get it right where I want it to be. Adding a little more light blue here. I'm almost getting to the point where I will let it dry one more time and then we'll see where we're at. But as you can see, I'm just finishing up these colors, getting his legs right where I want him. He's a cute little guy, you gotta admit. He may be Mr. Krabby, but he's not that crabby that you wouldn't like to take him home. Put him up on your cottage wall. Now, he's got some little whiskery things down here. And I just have to add his eyes and one more time and I think we'll be done. I'm just going to finish up this little crab now, only a few more things to do. I'm going to use some Dr. Martin's bleed proof white to put a little highlight on his eyes here, just a little. I'm using a bent paper clip to do that. Now I feel he also needs some sand to crawl in. So I'm going to quickly give him a little base here of some kind of dirt. Nothing real fancy, just something to ground him. He's not a swimming crab today, he's a crawling crab. So now all I have to do is sign it, and I'm done. Thank you for watching. This is Delilah with Art by Delilah.